The air in the restaurant was thick with the smell of expensive perfume and seared steak, a cloying sweetness that made my skin crawl. The clink of fine crystal and the low murmur of other couples celebrating felt like a mockery. I sat there, my fingers tracing the stem of a water glass I hadn't asked to be filled, dressed in the navy blue suit she'd bought me for our 20th anniversary. The one she said brought out the gray in my eyes. I dressed nice, just like she'd asked. Big surprise, she'd said with that secret little smile. The one that used to make my heart feel like it was wrapped in a warm blanket. I looked at my watch. Sarah was 20 minutes late. That was the first knot in the pit of my stomach, a tight, familiar dread I'd been trying to ignore for months. The second knot came when I saw her. She finally swept into the restaurant, a vision in a crimson dress I'd never seen before. But she wasn't looking for me. Her eyes were bright, her smile electric, locked on the man holding the door open for her. A man I knew, Mark from her office. He was wearing a suit too, a sharp, modern cut that made my own feel like a hand-me-down. And his hand, it rested on the small of her back, a possessive, intimate gesture that stole the air from my lungs. They weaved through the tables, laughing at some private joke, and for a heart-stopping second, I thought they were heading to my table. But they walked right past. They took a secluded booth in the back, the one I'd tried to request but was told was reserved. He pulled out her chair, his hand lingering on her shoulder, and she looked up at him with an expression I hadn't seen her direct at me in years. It was adoration.
Pure, unadulterated adoration.
I sat there, frozen, a statue in a suit, watching my wife of 22 years on a date with another man. This was the big surprise. It's funny how your mind works in a moment like that. It doesn't scream. It doesn't shatter all at once. It just rewinds. It pulls you back to the beginning, to a time when the word surprise meant a weekend fishing trip she'd secretly packed for, or a birthday party with all our old friends. It pulls you back to when the biggest worry was a mortgage payment, not the hollow silence across the dinner table. Her name is Sarah. We met in college, two kids who thought a shared love for bad 80s rock and cheap diner coffee was a foundation for a lifetime. And for a long, long time it was. I can still picture her then, her hair a wild, sun-streaked mane, her jeans ripped at the knees, dragging me to a dive bar to see some band nobody'd ever heard of. She had a laugh that could cut through any gloom, a sound I built my world around. David, the pragmatic business major, was swept away by her chaotic, beautiful energy. We got married young. We struggled. I took a job in logistics, a good, stable career. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. It put a roof over our heads, food on the table, and eventually, braces on our daughter Chloe's teeth. Sarah worked too in marketing, her career always a little more vibrant, a little more social than mine. We were a team. We bought a house with a yard that needed too much work. We spent weekends painting rooms and pulling weeds, dreaming of the day it would all be finished. We had Chloe, and our world, for a while, was perfect. It was full of sleepless nights, crayon drawings on the fridge, and a love that felt as permanent as the foundations of that old house. But you know how it goes. Life gets heavy. The years stack up like unpaid bills. The vibrant, impulsive girl I married started to dim. Or maybe it was me who dimmed. The 2008 recession hit us hard. We almost lost the house. I worked double shifts, took on extra contracts, came home with my shoulders so tight I could barely turn my head. The laughter in our house was replaced by the low, constant hum of anxiety. We stopped talking about dreams and started talking about interest rates. We stopped going to dive bars and started falling asleep on the couch by 9. I thought it was just a season, a hard, grueling season that every long marriage has to weather. I thought we were in it together. I was so focused on keeping the ship afloat, I didn't notice my first mate was already lowering a lifeboat. The first twist, the one I missed completely, was about 5 years ago. Sarah got a promotion, a big one. Vice President of Marketing. She was thrilled. I was proud of her, of course I was. But with the promotion came longer hours, more business trips, a new circle of friends. Younger, sharper, more ambitious friends. Mark was one of them. He was hired as a senior brand manager, reporting directly to her. She'd talk about him over dinner. "He's so clever," she'd say. "Such fresh ideas." I'd just nod, chewing my meatloaf, happy she had a competent colleague. I was an idiot, a trusting, tired idiot. The changes were subtle at first. She started dressing differently. Her comfortable sweaters and jeans were replaced by sleek, expensive blouses and tailored pants. She started going to the gym at odd hours. "Just need to blow off steam, David," she'd say when I asked why she had to go at 9 p.m. Her phone, which used to live on the kitchen counter, became an extension of her hand, and it was always face down. She developed a new, private smile for its screen. I told myself it was work. I told myself I was being a jealous, insecure old man. What kind of husband doesn't trust his wife? We'd built a life. We had a daughter in college. We had shared history. That had to count for something, right? That's what you tell yourself when you're my age. You cling to the history because the present feels so fragile. The second twist came on a Tuesday. It was our daughter Chloe's 20th birthday. We'd planned a video call with her at 7. At 6:50, Sarah was still in the home office, on a critical conference call. I paced the living room, getting angrier by the minute. This was our daughter. This was non-negotiable. At 7:05, I pushed the door open. She wasn't on a conference call. She was on a video call, all right, but it was one-on-one. With Mark. She was laughing, that young, girlish laugh I never heard anymore. She saw me and her face went slack. "I have to go," she said quickly into the screen, and closed her laptop. "What was that?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. "It was work, David," she snapped. "A last-minute crisis on the new campaign. Don't look at me like that." She brushed past me, and we had the video call with Chloe, putting on the performance of our lives. Happy, smiling, united parents. After we hung up, the silence in the room was colder than I'd ever felt it. "You're having an affair," I said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement that had been forming in the pit of my soul for months. She looked at me, her eyes wide, then they hardened. "Don't be ridiculous, David. I'm under a lot of stress. You have no idea what my job is like. You're just jealous because I'm still climbing and you've plateaued." Plateaued. The word hit me like a physical blow. It was the first time she'd ever weaponized my career, the career that had built the life she was now so clearly bored with. The fights after that were different. They weren't about forgotten anniversaries or who forgot to take out the trash. They were about the fundamental architecture of our lives. She accused me of being boring, of being satisfied with a mediocre life. I accused her of forgetting where she came from, of being ungrateful for the stability I'd provided. We were speaking different languages. I was speaking the language of loyalty and sacrifice. She was speaking the language of passion and self-fulfillment. And all the while, Mark was in the background, the living embodiment of everything I wasn't. Young, exciting, unburdened by 2 decades of baggage. If you've ever looked across the dinner table at the person you've loved for most of your life and seen a stranger, you'll understand the special kind of hell that is. It's a quiet, gnawing terror. Then, a week ago, the tension broke. It was like a storm had passed. She was sweet. She was attentive. She made my favorite meal, meatloaf, like she used to. She asked about my day. I, like a fool, let myself hope. I thought the crisis had passed. I thought she'd seen the brink and pulled back. That's the desperate hope of a man who spent his whole life building something he can't bear to see demolished. Last night, she came to me while I was reading in my armchair. She put her hand on my shoulder, a gesture so familiar and so missed that my heart ached. "David," she said, her voice soft, "dress nice tomorrow night. I've made reservations. I have a big surprise for you." She kissed my forehead. I looked up at her, and for a moment, I saw the ghost of the girl in the ripped jeans. I felt a surge of something I hadn't felt in years. Optimism. I thought she was trying to fix us. I thought the surprise was a second honeymoon. A piece of jewelry. A grand romantic gesture to bring us back from the edge. I am a 50-year-old man who believed in fairy tales. So I dressed nice. I put on the anniversary suit. I spent too long on my hair. I even dug out the cologne she'd bought me years ago. I was nervous like a kid on a first date. I arrived early. I sat at the table. I rehearsed what I would say. I would tell her I was sorry for being distant. I would tell her we could travel more, that we could find that spark again. I was willing to do anything. Anything. And then I saw her walk in with him. And the entire narrative of my life, the story I'd been telling myself for 22 years, crumbled into dust. This was the third and final twist, the one that broke me. The surprise wasn't for me. It was for him. She had brought him here to our restaurant, the place we'd celebrated our 10th anniversary, to show him and to show me that I was being replaced. I was the audience for my own execution. I don't know how long I sat there, watching them. I saw him feed her a bite of his dessert. I saw her throw her head back and laugh, her hand covering his on the table. I saw the way he looked at her, not with the weathered, comfortable love of a long marriage, but with the hungry, possessive gaze of new conquest. And I saw the way she basked in it. She was lit from within. This wasn't the stressed, unhappy woman I'd been living with. This was a woman in the throes of a new romance. And I was the inconvenient relic from her past, sitting 20 feet away, watching my future dissolve. I could have confronted them. I could have made a scene, thrown a punch, yelled. But what would that have accomplished? It would have made me the pathetic, angry husband, the punchline to their love story. I was in too much shock for anger. All I felt was a cold, vast emptiness. The love I had for her, a love that had been the cornerstone of my entire adult life, didn't shatter. It just evaporated. It left a vacuum. I stood up. My legs felt numb. I didn't look at them again. I walked out of the restaurant, the cool night air hitting my face like a slap. I drove home, the whole way in a silence so profound I could hear the blood roaring in my ears. I walked into our dark, silent house. I went straight to the bedroom and took off the navy blue suit. I folded it neatly, placed it on the bed, and put on an old pair of sweats. Then I went to my home office, the one I'd built in what was supposed to be the nursery for the second child we never had. I sat down at my computer. The cold, logical part of my brain, the part that had managed complex supply chains for 25 years, finally kicked in. This was no longer about heartbreak. This was about survival. This was about consequences. I opened my email. I found the folder I'd subconsciously started months ago, the one labeled Financials. I began to compile everything. Bank statements, mortgage documents, the prenuptial agreement we'd signed, a document that now felt like a prophecy. I drafted an email to my lawyer, a man named Frank who'd handled my father's estate. The message was simple, direct, and utterly devoid of emotion. Frank, Sarah is having an affair. I want a divorce. I want to move fast and I want to protect my assets. Call me first thing in the morning. I hit send. It was the most decisive action I'd taken in years. Then I did something else. I remembered a conversation from months ago, a casual comment Sarah had made about Mark's wife. His wife. The poor woman had no idea. I found the company directory. Took me less than a minute to find her email address. Laura. Her name was Laura. I drafted a second email. This one was harder. It had to be factual. It had to be undeniable. I attached the only piece of evidence I had. A photo I'd taken with my phone from my table in the restaurant. It was a little blurry, but it clearly showed Sarah and Mark, their heads close together, his hand on hers, the half-eaten dessert between them. I wrote, Laura, I am sorry to send you this. My name is David. Sarah is my wife. I believe your husband is the man in this picture, taken tonight at Giovanni's. I thought you had a right to know. I didn't hit send. Not yet. That was my trump card. The front door opened around midnight. I heard her heels on the hardwood floor. She hummed a little tune. She came into the office, her cheeks flushed, her eyes still bright from the wine and the adultery. David? Why are you sitting in the dark? She flicked on the light. She saw my face, and her smile faltered. What's wrong? How was your surprise? I asked, my voice flat. She blinked, trying to maintain the charade. What do you mean? I had to work late. Another crisis with the... Stop, I said, cutting her off. I was there, Sarah. At Giovanni's. I saw you. With Mark. The transformation was instant. The guilt was there for a fleeting second. Then it was replaced by a defiant hardness. She didn't deny it. She didn't cry. She crossed her arms over her chest, the crimson dress suddenly looking cheap and tawdry. So you followed me? God. David. How pathetic. You told me to dress nice, I said, almost to myself. You told me there was a big surprise. You wanted me to see, didn't you? You're too much of a coward to just ask for a divorce. So you engineered this spectacle. She shrugged, a cold, dismissive gesture. Maybe I did. You wouldn't have listened otherwise. You're stuck in your rut, David. You're happy with this. She gestured around the room, at the house, at our life with utter contempt. I'm not. Mark and I, we're in love. He makes me feel alive. You haven't made me feel alive in a decade. There it was, the final, brutal truth. And hearing it out loud, in the cold light of my office, it had no power over me anymore. The love was gone. All that was left was the wreckage. Get out, I said quietly. What? Get out of my house. Go to a hotel. Go to his place. I don't care. But you are not spending another night under this roof. She laughed, a short, harsh sound. Your house? This is our house. I've already emailed Frank, I said, nodding toward the computer. The divorce proceedings start tomorrow. And given the prenup you were so eager to sign to protect your future earnings, and the evidence of your adultery, I'd be very careful about what you think is yours. The color drained from her face. The prenup. She'd forgotten all about it. In her new, exciting life with Mark, she'd forgotten the boring, legal document that would now protect the man she'd left behind. You can't be serious. I am dead serious. I picked up my phone, my thumb hovering over the send button on the email to Laura. And if you don't leave right now, I will send this picture to Mark's wife. I wonder how alive you'll feel when his world blows up too. I wonder how long his love will last when he's facing his own divorce and fighting for custody of his kids. Her defiance crumbled. She looked at me, truly looked at me, and for the first time that night, she saw a man she didn't recognize. She saw a man who was no longer her husband, but her adversary. She saw a man who had nothing left to lose. Without another word, she turned and walked out of the room. I heard her go upstairs, drag a suitcase from the closet, throw things into it. 20 minutes later, the front door slammed shut. The house was silent again. But this silence was different. It wasn't empty anymore. It was full of possibility. I sat there for a long time. The pain was there, a deep, aching throb, but it was clean. It was the pain of a surgery, not a disease. The disease had been the last 5 years of lies and slow decay. This was the cut that would allow me to heal. I finally picked up my phone. I looked at the email to Laura, and I hit send. It wasn't an act of anger anymore. It was an act of justice, of closure. That was 6 months ago. The divorce is final now. Sarah and Mark are together, living in a trendy apartment downtown. It didn't work out with his wife, obviously. Rumor has it it's already getting rocky. The thrill of the secret affair can't survive the mundane reality of shared bills and whose turn it is to take out the trash. I heard from a mutual friend that Sarah misses the house. She misses the stability. She's finding out that alive is a hard thing to feel when you're 50 and starting over with a man who has his own baggage. As for me, I'm still in the house. I've repainted the bedroom. I got a dog, a goofy golden retriever who greets me at the door every day like I'm a returning hero. I've reconnected with old friends. I've even gone on a few dates. Strange and scary and new. The other day, I was cleaning out the closet and I found that navy blue suit. I held it in my hands for a moment, remembering the man who wore it that night, the man whose heart was shattered in a fancy restaurant. He feels like a stranger to me now. I took the suit to a charity bin and dropped it in. It was just a suit. It was never the problem. I'm building a new life, brick by brick. It's a quieter life, perhaps, but it's honest. It's mine. And for the first time in a long, long time, it feels like enough. If this story touched you, If you've ever felt the sting of betrayal or the quiet strength of starting over, hit subscribe and don't miss the next heartbreak that will leave you speechless. Because sometimes, the end of one story is just the beginning of a better one.